Yeah, I think we're ready to go. What's going on, everybody? This is a Scotty P Breakdown podcast, and I am here with Chris Ortiz, a coach, a basketball player. You do Jiu Jitsu, you write books. You got a lot going on, and man, you reached out to me, which says a lot about you. That you're willing to reach out to fellow creators and kind of like, you kind of just like let me know that you liked what I was doing and that you'd be down to collaborate one day.
Yes, definitely.
And we were eventually able to like work it out to where we could make the time. And I really appreciate you doing this, man.
And I appreciate you coming to the crib, man.
Absolutely.
And like you said earlier, like I really do enjoy the things that you're doing. I think that there is like a gap or a void, right? For someone to come in and talk, specifically about jiu-jitsu in our little community, because we got good game here in this Houston area. Like I know you're in Conroe, correct?
Yep.
But I consider Conroe part of like this sprawling Houston community, and your breakdowns, and then you go into the shows and you're doing some commentating. I think you're going to fill a void that's much needed. So I appreciate you giving back to the game.
Thank you, dude. Thank you. And yeah, so we've been our first phone call. Just for one, it was like I knew you were genuine. I'm trying to develop that skill for myself, where it's like where you can. I'm sure you've noticed where you meet people and then something about them, you're like, man, this is a nice guy. This is a nice person. And it's like that, I feel like is a skill in itself, because, how can you come across in such a short amount of time that you're genuine, and it's like, I always appreciate that about other people. And so I try to do that, I try to embody that myself. But yeah, you called me and immediately we kind of just like linked up, or had some kind of chemistry. We just started geeking out about the skill of podcasting and basketball. You say you're a basketball coach these days for a junior high and a high school?
Yeah, so I currently coach at Knox Junior High, and I'm the girls' head coach over there. So like speak of the devil, this morning in about an hour, right, I'm about to go pick up a bus. I'm going to take my athletes up to Rice University. We've been doing this probably like 7-8 years now, and we rotate between Rice and Texas A&M. And I'm a real big fan of like the experiences that sports can offer for young people. So like if we can put a kid on a college campus that's never really thought about, attending a school and thinking that college is something that's so far out, but put them on campus and let them watch a game and catch a tour and let them know that, hey, I can actually like reach out and touch this. It's tangible, right? It's real at this point. I think it's part of what we are supposed to do when we're called to coach and teach. So hopefully Rice is able to beat, I think they're playing St. Mary's out of California today. But more importantly, I hope my kids have a good time. They have a great experience, and it's something that they don't forget,
Yeah, no, dude, man, that speaks, worlds to what you're doing. I kind of feel like when I was coming up, yeah, I went to a college campus. I think it was just like a senior trip day, but no, it would have really been nice to do that like earlier in my career. Yeah, not career, but earlier as a kid. Because yeah, college, I imagine for most people is just like this thing that everyone's telling you about that you need to worry about, but you don't have any like idea of what it is, So yeah, I think that would have been cool to actually see a basketball game. So that's cool that you're doing that.
Yeah, and it's I think it's huge too. Like for people like myself, like when we were coming up, I'm the first one to go to college. So people always spoke about college, but no one ever went, in our family. And I can remember like my mom signed me up for a U of H baseball camp when I was 12. And for a week, I got to go like stay in the dorms, eat the meals over there. We'd wake up and we'd practice in, the morning, the afternoon, and the evening. And that was the first time that I realized like, this is what I want to do. I want to have my freedom, and my anonymity. And I want to be able to do something that I love every day and then catch an education at the same time. So if that rubbed off on me like that, like, who's to say, if I can't help change the life of maybe like one, maybe two, maybe 20, kids, luckily here in the Woodlands though, a lot of them, they'll be able to go to college without, it being too big of a deal, but there's still those kids that need to reach out, touch it, and feel it.
No, 100%. And talking about like coaching the youth, for me, when I first got out of the Marine Corps and I was chasing my dream of doing jiu-jitsu, it can be lonely doing something just for yourself.
Ooh.
And it can be, obviously it feels good to know that you have like a purpose like for yourself for sure. But as you start to go along through life, you like still crave like something more than just titles or wins or something that you do for yourself. And what I found is I've taught many different kids classes at a bunch of different gyms, whether it's the jiu-jitsu gym I trained at. I've been a karate instructor for kids, where I would drive to different cities every single day and teach a kids class, and it was like structured for like low income families, so it was like only like $15, 10, $15, and it was like one time a week. And it's just like that gave me like real, like it made my heart feel full, and someone, and like even in that I would still be in my own head about it, of like it became a job. And I just remember someone telling me, is like, dude, there's a good chance for some of those kids that you're the only positive male influence in their life that day. And, that like really like stuck with me, is like, because I remember me being a kid and adults not being nice, and it's like, I still remember some messed up things that people have told me when I was a kid, or it's like, where someone was like, yeah, you're just SLOW. You don't have a chance, like little something that was probably just like an offhand comment for him, will never remember, is like something I still think about to this day.
Isn't that sad?
Yeah, it is, and so it really is like, what can be greater than having a positive impact on the youth?
Right. And to your point, it's really nice to show people that, especially like in martial arts, right? Like, strong is kind, right? Strength is forgiving. Strength is patience. It's not what you see like on the Karate Kid, like the bad boy Johnny, on those first one, or whatever the guy was on part 2. Like, to be strong, means that you are kind, that you are an understanding individual, that you have empathy. And I don't know, it's weird. It's like society says otherwise, but like when you start training, right? Like when we train, some of the best dudes you get an opportunity to train with, they're some of the nicest guys that you have ever met. And that's something that I really wish like the fight game would really highlight more, and show the community that, like when you learn to fight or you learn to defend yourself and you're proficient, you're actually pretty damn good at it. It also brings like a wealth of like generosity, kindness. I don't know if it's because we've been drugged through the mud, and been humbled so many times that, we've had a lot of those rough exteriors peeled from us. But I think the martial arts game, really does, it preaches, strength, kindness, generosity, patience, all these virtues that we want, for our young people and our kids. So especially like someone like you, like you got a Marine, right? You got that background in the Marines, you're seasoned with your grappling skills. You're out there teaching karate, like big, strong, handsome dude like yourself, and you're teaching people how to fight. But it's really refreshing to see that on the other side of that is a kind and understanding individual that just wants to give back.
And yeah, I was listening to Joe Rogan. They were literally talking about this, and they were just saying that, people believe that the fighters are the bullies, but it's actually the opposite. You want to put the bullies and teach them how to fight, because that is what's going to make them kind. Because essentially, I think Hicks and Gracie and like the heads of the Gracie family would say that jiu-jitsu or any martial art is a spiritual journey. And, it can be hard to understand that when you first start, because you're just trying to not get beat up and beat up other people.
Yeah.
But something that you realize is that when you go through this for 12 years, I think 14 is what you said?
Almost 15.
Almost 15 years, is that you're going to be put in some of the toughest situations that you've ever had to deal with. And the only thing that you can do is to surrender to what's happening to you, whether it's getting beat up or getting injured. I mean, I imagine you've had some crazy injuries if you've been doing this for 15 years. And the kind of resolve that you have to say that you're still going to do something regardless of, the experiences that you had. It's like, it's only going to build you to be stronger. Not stronger physical wise, but stronger mentally and emotionally. And so, it's like a lot of people say I'm like very calm. And it's because, I've had like world-class guys punching me in the face, like not letting me go anywhere, and that's what you want to be able to give the kids, because like one of the things that I get so worried about is that, in times of crisis, most people freeze. And that is like the worst thing that you can do. In the Marine Corps, we'd say you freeze, you die. And you want to be able to, you know, a lot of these helicopter parents want to protect your kid from stress, but that is not what you want to do. You want to put them in an environment where they can experience stress in the safe ways possible,
Yes.
and it's like, it's humbling and going to teach the kid to be able to at least process thoughts and be able to act in a moment of like high duress. And that's the greatest thing that you could do for someone, is give them the ability to be a decision maker.
Yes. Under like very stressful conditions, right? Like you pointed out in jujitsu, having, someone that's maybe like physically superior, maybe even like up top when it comes to their knowledge of the game superior, and being underneath in a precarious situation and having to think your way out of this situation using a proper technique and leverage. And wow. And because like we do that on a regular basis, like we can take that and we can apply it any and everywhere. It could be in an uncomfortable conversation. It could be an offender bender, right? Because like we face this situation probably 3 to 5 times every time we, drop into our local, jujitsu academy, and it transfers, so it's really cool. And it'd be really nice if we could give that to more young people. I'll tell you something that's funny, man. Like I was trying to spearhead this idea. I was reaching out to our superintendent, Dr. Curtis Knoll. I'm going to reach out to him again. I think it's a really good idea. Like I would love to target some of our hard to reach kids, and gift them with the gift of jujitsu. I'd like to put them in some precarious situations and let them see that, hey, like there's other ways. Let's find a way to think through our problems instead of always like exploding, getting mad, using words that we're going to regret later, taking things to physicality. Some of it's the physicality aspect, right? Like zapping the piss and vinegar out of them with a good warm up, and some drilling and then some rolling. But then the other half of that is the human chess game that's involved, and how it just breeds a more calm and confident individual where you don't have to come in and be the loudest dog at the school barking at everyone when really like you're just like a scared, selfish, just a baby, so to speak, right? Like those are the people that are acting like the chihuahuas. The people that you really have to worry about, they don't say nothing, man. They're like ninjas, lying in wait till the right time.
Yeah. And same thing about the Marine Corps, man. If someone's bragging to you about all the things they did on deployment, I usually just start tuning them out. It's the person that didn't say anything, that's just like there. Like you can see it in their eyes that they,
I can see it in your eyes. I'm gonna watch what I say around you.
Oh, man. Yeah. And speaking of, so we were talking about sports and jujitsu and, what it does for the youth. I think a big thing too is, not just the skill itself, but also I really believe that humans aren't meant to be in a sedentary lifestyle. And I think that's one of the major reasons why kids will act out. And, it's like, I don't think adults should not move.
That's not good for anyone, right?
Right. And now imagine a kid with so much energy. It's like they have to do something. Like, dude, I teach a 7-year-old and I'll be showing her something or we'll be talking and then I know her, she'll just start spinning, like just, and then she gets it out and then she's like back to like what we were saying. Or then she'll like, I'm going to go run and touch the wall. I'm like, all right, go run. And then she'll go run and then she'll come back and then she'll do it again. And then she's like calm again. And, the mom was joking. She's like, you only get her for 1 hour a day. This is her at 4 a.m. And I'm like, dang. But yeah, they need an outlet to get the energy out. And it's healthy because, your thoughts, make you feel a certain way. They make you want to, anger, sadness, any emotion that's probably not like, even excitement, right? Can also be anxiety if you don't do something with it.
Yep.
Right. Like, I think I heard something that an emotion is energy in motion. Right. And so I'm sure, it's like one of the best things that you can do for yourself if you're feeling some type of way about something is to go work out, go hit the bag, to move. Yes. And so we can't be, these kids, the last thing you want to do for them is to, have them go to school all day and then they come home and then you're forcing them to do homework and then they eat and then they sleep. It's like there needs to be something to where they can move and express themselves.
Yeah. There's a weird, you're bringing up some really good points talking about the educational side. It's weird. Like, when I grew up, there wasn't such a divide between kids that like moved and kids that didn't move. But right now, like as an educator, I've seen like, and this is been teaching almost 20 years. I think I'm on year 19. But there's like a great divide right now between, kids that are sedentary. And when I say sedentary, I mean legitimate sedentary most of their hours of the day and most of, the years of their life. And then you got the other side, which is almost equally perplexing, is to see like the kids that are overscheduled that have, you know, hour and a half practice, after their school practice. And then they go see a private instructor afterwards. And I'm talking about basketball, volleyball, you name drop the sport. So there's like this huge gap between the haves and the have-nots, or the do's and the don'ts, which was really, really interesting. And it'd be really nice to find a way like to close that gap somehow. I don't know if, with children's sports becoming like such a moneymaker, if that's actually the driving force, because, you could go to a lot of these communities and see like the communities that have money, they're typically, high performing athletic, communities. And then you go to a community where there's, a lot of, poverty, so to speak, right? And they're not going to do too well. So I think that this gap, it's caused, by money. I think, children's sports has become a big business, and we have essentially the haves and the have-nots. But to your point, yeah, these kids, they need to move. So it'd be really nice to find a way throughout the course of a school day where we could, interject some more movement. So like we took our kids out the other day. It was the day before Thanksgiving break. Everyone's kind of got their stuff taken care of. You're just tying up loose ends. And it was like, all right, we're going to go outside. We're going to go play. Man, and it was a beautiful sight to see, man. Wall ball. You remember wall ball?
Mm-hmm.
Man, these kids playing wall ball. Some football games going on. Just, volleyball getting bumped around. I really do feel like if more opportunities were presented just for kids to play in unstructured, environments, that they would take advantage of it, even more so than like the structured PE period. There's something about just saying, go play. I would compare it to open mat.
Yeah.
Like, hey, y'all go roll. Like, all right. Then you just find a buddy, get the slap, the that, then all right, then let's roll.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's an excellent point that you brought up.
Yeah. And I could talk about the youth for forever. I feel like we've already touched on some good points, but I guess I just want to say one last thing, because this is what I find the most important thing about jiu-jitsu.
Yeah.
Is, and team sports, is the fact that it's not so much like, obviously learning how to defend yourself will do wonders for your confidence and your ability. But what I find that, like, when I see someone that is struggling, or jiu-jitsu could be for them, oftentimes it's, I want them to be surrounded by the individuals that are there. And, the saying is as old as time, it's, you're the average of your 5 best friends, and, obviously I'm not saying that you should, not be friends with certain people, but you should definitely surround yourself with people that are trying to better themselves. And because when everyone around you is doing something, whether it's extra or pushing themselves, you are way more likely to do it. It's like, what are you filling your mind with? It's like, who are the people that are around you? What are they talking about? What are they doing? And because whether you believe it or not, that is affecting you in somehow. And when you're surrounded by individuals that are, trying to make their business better, or trying to get better at jiu-jitsu, or like a lot, just like we have that camaraderie, you roll for a little bit and then everyone kind of hangs out afterwards. And you find out that, man, everyone in here is like on their own journey and trying to just, if you're taking the time to go to jiu-jitsu after work, you're a next level person, right? Like, that is hard to do. And so, and oftentimes the people that are doing this, that is only one thing that they're doing. They have many other things that they're constantly focused on and working on. And what I find is that these people push me to be better. And so it's like, a lot of times, like young people, especially, they just need to be around like other adult men who are, good people. And that will, I feel like that can, like, it rubs off on especially the younger generation, but just even in like, with other friends or lower belts or whoever, I feel like, some people are the same age as me, some people are younger than me, but, I feel like I inspire them a little bit at least. And I feel inspired by the people that I'm around. Like I'm always around Vic. Victor Post is my coach, and he's so next level as far as like how he accomplished things and how he does things. It's like I have an answer for how to go forward in the things that I'm doing in my life. It's like he writes a schedule down and follows it to a T. He has like hour by hour, he schedules everything, and it's like that is such a key detail that if you want a successful business, it's like here's someone who has made it in the journey that I want to make it in, right? Like runs a successful business in jiu-jitsu. It's like, because I trained at this jiu-jitsu gym, I now have access to him. I can ask him questions. He can help me out. He gives me advice. And it's like, that's the biggest thing that you can, as another, male or female, that's like one of the greatest gifts that you can have for yourself is having someone who can coach you or mentor you.
It's nice, right? To be surrounded by people and you get access to their blueprints.
Right.
So like, in your case, you're talking about your buddy Victor, and to have access to that blueprint, especially for somebody that's doing, what you hope to be doing, having your own spot and having your own academy one day, and maybe even just like, a branch or a chain, of academies. It's really cool, and when you take that and you multiply it, by 5 or 10 or 15, like, maybe like me and you, like we're going to talk, I imagine, after this, and we can actually during the interview too, man, talk about the podcast game, and I could give you some of the blueprints and some of the things that I've learned along the way and vice versa. Like I can pick your brain, but it's really neat that this sport that we have chosen to partake in, it has so many things that have nothing to do with jiu-jitsu, but have everything to do with just making a better life, for ourselves. So I know like at our gym, I'm surrounded by, doctors, lawyers, professional fighters, educators, law enforcement. Like those are some pretty good people, right? To be spending our time with, and to be getting those precious like nuggets and gems, and, just sharing stories like, hey man, my kid did this, man. Tell me about your experience with your kid. It's refreshing to hear that, hey, even like the lawyer's kid, screwed up here and there, and the cop's kid screwed up here and there. Like it's normal, but it's really refreshing because it tends to draw in, for the most part, really good people. Some of the not so good people sometimes get weeded out early. There's the occasional one that makes it all the way up to the top, and sooner or later they get exposed. But yeah. I love this sport, but I also love the fact that it's the people in the game. And if I'm being truthful, it's the people in the game that like keep me walking in the door. I usually chill out for about an hour after class, whether it's a kickboxing or if it's a jiu-jitsu, and I'll post up on the wall, and sometimes it's the same people, sometimes it's someone different, but for like an hour, man, I just talk shop, and we don't even talk jiu-jitsu really. It's usually like, what's going on with your family? How's your business going? So excellent point.
Yeah. Well, dude, yeah. So you brought up, the podcasting, and yes, when you first called me, I was like one of the first things that we kind of geeked about, just like the struggles of trying to hold a podcast. And it's funny. So many people will try to tell you that the podcast space is saturated. I was like, oh, everyone's got a podcast. Everyone's doing podcasts. Podcasts are out now, and it's like, for me, I'm like, well, I don't know anyone else that does a podcast. So what are you saying it's saturated? Like everyone's like, oh, everyone knows someone doing a podcast. I'm like,
yeah,
that's funny. I don't know anybody doing one. So I definitely don't think it's saturated at all. I think it's just now growing. But one of the biggest revelations for me is it's a lot more of a skill set than I thought it was. I was thinking, I was like, I could do a better job than Joe Rogan. And now that I've done it a couple times, and I've been doing it for a long time, it's funny, like people try to be like, oh, they think I just did this, and then now it's like what I do. But I had 8 failed podcasts before this one. And so
what were the subjects?
Man, my original idea was to my very first one that I got committed to doing, I called it Skills. And I essentially just wanted to talk about how because a lot of people in jiu-jitsu are really good at other things. So like you're a basketball coach. And one of the things I want to geek out about after we talk about podcasting is like basketball and how it relates to jiu-jitsu. But that was like the main focus of the podcast, was I essentially wanted to talk to all my jiu-jitsu friends that I knew that were fantastic at something else, and like the
Which is a great
correlations.
idea.
Yeah, it was awesome. I shot like 8 episodes, but then the gym closed down and everyone shotgunned to different places, and I didn't have nowhere to shoot it. It just like, at the time it just kind of fell apart. But no, like I talked to a guy who was like the head personal trainer at another fitness gym. I talked to a guy who was a karate black belt, like did Kyokushin in Japan. I talked to a guy who was a 350-pound former lineman for a D1 college. He was 350 pounds dieting. And he was a nurse, worked crazy hours, and still found time to come to jiu-jitsu and beat us all up. There was a chef who was he was a blue belt when I left, but he was a black belt, essentially, like as a chef. He was like head chef at one of the restaurants. And, just, I really find that interesting of how like, the two are very similar. Like what you learn in jiu-jitsu applies to what you're doing into something else or whatever you're good at. If you're a chef, a lot of those same ideas apply to jiu-jitsu somehow, and it's almost so like for me, like basketball, I found that there were certain things that I'd learned in basketball that still held true in jiu-jitsu. They just weren't as obvious. They were way more subtle. Like, for example, like fakes. In basketball, you only have so many options. You can dribble to the left, you can dribble to the right, and you can shoot and fake. So you essentially have to do a bunch of fakes in order to be able to go the direction that you want to go, because you can't just do the same thing every time, right? So like if I get the ball in the post, I always want to throw a fake. I'm very rarely am I just going to go straight for what I want, right?
Yeah.
I'm going to spin to one way, I might spin the other way, and then I'll throw a head fake in that one, and then I might go up after that, and then still throw in another fake after that. One of my favorite moves was to like rock back and forth.
Looks like you're hitting a dream shake on us real quick, man.
Is that what it's called?
Akeem Olajuwon.
Dang, I literally just, I don't know where I learned it from, but I didn't know it had a name. I remember it was like, okay, well, if I go 1 and then 2, it's still not enough. So I would go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, I'm like, and then spin. And then I'd still hit a fake on top of that. I'd go up there, bring it back down and go the other way. And in jiu-jitsu, it's like, it kind of gets lost sometimes to throw fakes and feints. And so I feel like that helped me a lot. And then also is like my footwork in basketball. A lot of times in jiu-jitsu, you can kind of get lulled into just passing from your knees all the time. And I just want to be on my feet. And I feel like I can move really well. I can cross step really well. I throw fakes. Like I can, go left to right, back to left. And, again, I just felt like because I played basketball a lot, I was able to really transfer those ideas over to jiu-jitsu really well. And so I kind of liked learning about those things, about how other people were taking what they learned from other things and applying it.
Yeah. So like, with the basketball, like the cardio, right? Definitely, helped out, and vice versa. Like whenever I go and hoop on a Sunday, like cardio is never an issue because of all the rolling that we do and learning like to control your heart rate, right? Because like the inverse is also true. Whatever we learn in jiu-jitsu, we can apply it, other places. I would also say like the footwork is a good one, especially like you can tell like how seasoned someone is, especially by like how well they integrate their feet into their game. I used to, probably for like, what am I going on? Close to 15. So probably about 13 and a half of the years, I've really just been upper body. But now I'm really starting to utilize like my legs in different capacities that I didn't before. And, it's opening up like some new routes that I didn't previously have access to. So just utilizing my feet more. And then to what you were saying about like your earlier podcast and how like you're enamored at how like the chef and the lineman and I think there's something too, like people that stick in the jiu-jitsu game, it shows something called consistency, right? And everyone that you just mentioned also has consistency in their other field. And it's just proof positive that consistency is a lot more important than what we're given credit for a lot of the time. Like we want to give credit to talent and supreme athleticism, but there's something to be said about someone that shows up every day and, checks in, hits the clock, and does it again. Cause every day, I know if you're like me, every day you don't feel like going when you go, like you're nursing an injury. Maybe you need to give time to your significant other. Maybe you're just not in the right headspace, but, the fact that you continue to check in, pull up, walk in the door, that shows something, so most of us that have been around the game a long time, are going to find a way to show consistency somewhere else, like your podcast, right? Like there's a lot of no's I imagine that you get when you're podcasting, or maybe people don't even answer you back, which is one of the biggest complaints that I have. I really wish like people would just say, no, I don't have time right now, maybe later. You know, but oftentimes in the podcast game, right, they'll just choose just to ghost you.
Yeah.
You know, and it's I wouldn't do that to someone else because I know what it feels like. But these skills that you've brought into jiu-jitsu, I have no doubt that you're going to be able to apply them to what you're doing. You know, you got a nice little setup. It's only going to get better.
Yeah.
You know, you're looking at your podcast setup, you know, hey, you ain't a white belt.
Yeah.
You ain't a white belt, man.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like before we got on video with my podcast, and before we were gifted with a studio, and before, you know, I met my really good friend Josh Ricks, who brought in all the 4K cameras and stuff like that. Like I was filming on my little phone right there and just doing audio, and I was doing it for the love. You know, like it doesn't matter how many people listen or didn't listen. Like I did it because I wanted to do it. And I think that's what jiu-jitsu does a lot of the time. Like I'm not going to be a world champion. I ain't even going to win a local competition, but damn it, I love it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So same thing with the podcast. And I see, you know, with what you're doing right here, the time that you're giving, the effort that you're giving, you know, the little setup, and you know, the next time I see you, I imagine, you know, there'll be some upgrades.
Yeah.
Maybe it won't be, you know, the phones. Maybe it'll be, you know, like a 4K camera, just one though. And then there's something to be said about consistency. And it's really neat to see. Like I'm taking it all in, and I'm like, man, the dude Scotty's going to be all right. I see him making the moves, getting on commentary. Like it's very commendable. It's very commendable, man.
Thank you, dude. Yeah, it's been you know, a long journey, you know, making mistakes and thinking it's going to go this way, and it kind of like just funnels you.
What's the toughest part for you?
For the podcasting?
Yeah, like for me, it's like when people don't hit me back. Like that's what kind of like, you know, hurts my heart. You know, like I'm someone that I'd much rather you say like, Chris, we don't have time right now. How about like you reach back out in like a month or so? That, or when people cancel on you like a day or two before, as if like your time's not important, and like you're not making space for them. And for them, it's as simple as I can't show up. But for you, it's like I built my whole day around you already.
Yeah.
And this is what I get.
Yeah.
What about you? What's the hardest part?
Man,
it's a reverse podcast.
Yeah. Man, it's funny. Yeah, the Rock was on Joe Rogan, and he was reverse podcasting. I'm asking him questions. And I thought that was really interesting. Well, real quick, when you're talking about the upgrades, yeah, my next one is I want to get another set of the mics, because sometimes, you know, you get two athletes and they both want to just kind of jump on at the same time. So like the other day, I had Joseph Chen and Owen Jones, who both won trials. Two 19-year-old kids. Man, they're so smart. It's like they're like the embodiment of like, this is what we could do for the youth, because these guys are on another level. But yeah, both of them, I was like, guys, I'm sorry, I only got two mics. I promise you, I'm going to get another set of mics, but right now I only got two. And so we kind of just had to share. And I just want to be able to, you know, have another set so that in case someone's like, hey, because I get that a lot. We're like, hey, can my buddy jump on? Or so-and-so jump on? I just would feel more comfortable. And after I shot that last one with both of them, I realized it actually is kind of easier, especially if they've never done a podcast before, is like, because I can ask one person a question, and then the other person is like figuring out their thoughts. And then the other person can like have a second to process what they said and what I said, and maybe have something to go off of. And then they'll go off of each other. And so it kind of makes, you know, especially because these guys are young, you know, and a lot of these athletes haven't done podcasts. So yeah, I definitely want to get more. That's my next thing that I'm like zoned in on. But as far as like the hardest thing for me is, I would say like making sure that I do it right. Like, man, I've had multiple mess ups before where it's just like,
what are mess ups?
So I did one with my coach Victor, and it was very hard to get him to commit, and because he's very like, man, he's always worried about what he's going to say in public, because he's a hardcore old school guy, you know, and so he just wanted to. He was very nervous about what he might say, and you know, because obviously, one, he's very successful and people know who he is, so you know, he wants to like give his opinion about jiu-jitsu, but also, you know, doesn't want it to be put out. He wanted to be very careful about what he wanted to say, you know. And man, one of the cameras went out of focus.
Oh,
dude. And so yeah, I can't remember. I'm pretty sure this was like the second time we had done it, and I still messed it up. And I was just like, it broke my heart because he gave me his time. It's like he charges $100 for an hour, and he took the time to.
He gave you an hour.
He gave me an hour, dude, and I
fumbled the bag.
I fumbled the bag, dude.
Hey, I too have fumbled the bag with my head coach. I forgot to hit record once.
Oh, dang. Yeah.
It happens, right?
Yep.
It only happened once too, and it happened with my head coach.
Yep. So one time, and that was the second time that camera had done that. And that's when I upgraded to just phones. I was like, the cameras, for whatever reason, or maybe this specific camera was just too hard to like make sure it was focused and would stay in focus. Like one time I got Chris Ortiz on the podcast, who runs 10th Planet Long Island, active competitor. His kid is like top 15 or something in the division, in the heavyweight division. You know what I'm talking about? No. They call him Rubber Bones.
What a nickname, though.
Yeah. I forget his name, but anyway, he's they're in the community, and I took a super fight out there, and then he hooked me up and gave me some of his time, and yeah, the camera was out of focus on me. So luckily, I was smart enough that both times I put the camera on me, so that at least I was able to cut the shorts up. And one time I was like taking pictures for it was Salty Dog Jiu Jitsu. John Salter trains out of there, like high level guys. And I was taking pictures for him, and dude, I didn't even realize. I was like just so in the moment of like, making sure I'm not in the way, and, trying to get the shots. I didn't even realize there was a little red notification on my camera that the memory card wasn't in there. And dude, someone came up to me the other way. He's like, man, I saw you doing your thing, dude. I know those shots are gonna be dope. Make sure you get them to me. And I was like, I didn't even have the heart to tell.
But you persevere, right? Like,
yes.
Learn from your mistakes, and like you said, the learning comes like, I'm just going to go with my phones now. I ain't going to make the same mistake twice. It speaks to, again, like jiu-jitsu, like where, hey, you may have caught me with this time, but you will not catch me again. We'll play a different game, and we'll move in some different ways, but by God, you're not going to catch me again in that situation. And, that's the beautiful thing about the game, man. It's forever transferable to life.
Yeah. I'll say this, to people out there, because now that I'm in the position that I am, I help a lot of people with their social media, and help them with their ideas. And one of the number one thing. So I even I worked for a buddy of mine, and he started a company where we edit other people's podcasts, and we help like people who are writing a book. They want to start a podcast to start, getting the publicity, or maybe a real estate agent is looking to make more connections. So they want, because that's what a podcast can do for you, is like help you create connections. It gives you, because it's funny, like people think that a podcast is like almost selfish, where it's like for me, but it honestly helps the person.
It's for you.
Yes. And then so like if you're a business professional, what it can do for you is that it can give you a way to link up with other business professionals and make connections and relationships. And so I would help other people do that. And so, yeah, one of the number one things that I see when I would like coach people, and what do we call it? Creative mentoring, is people try to imagine the perfect scenario, or how can they go about it perfectly. And the truth is that
it doesn't exist.
It doesn't exist. It's going to be bad, and you're going to mess it up, and you're going to hate yourself for it. Especially at first. Like I'm helping someone create a channel right now, and they're like, I just don't feel confident in the information. And I tell them, I was like, even if you were confident, it would still suck. It's like, you only by doing it will you feel confident in what it is that you're putting out there.
Yep.
And so it's like, you could be a master at this person, it's like, they're already a master. They just don't, they don't have the confidence to really embody it yet. And then so now they're like, well, I just don't know if, I'm speaking about this in the right way or whatever. And I'm like, just do it.
Only one way to find out.
Just mess it up. And then over time, you will get better at doing it. And then you will realize what it is that you want to say.
Well, Mr. Beast, even I think like the other day, like he had posted something, and it was something very early on, and it was a video that he had saved, if I remember correctly, so that when he hit his X amount of subscribers or viewers, that he would release, it would, I think, green light him to go back and look at this video. And, he was just making corny video games, YouTube, videos, and, lo and behold, he's building, like wells for people in Africa now. And he's probably one of the most recognizable people, in the world, and he's grown his game. But again, like go back and look at his, or go back and look at like Rogan's first podcasts or YouTube videos, and they look horrible. The lighting is bad, the microphones are not of, the utmost quality. But if you persevere, if you keep pushing forward, like you'll make your mistakes, you'll learn from your mistakes, and who knows, right? Like this next podcast may be the one that blows you up. Maybe something gets said, maybe something gets what is it, turned viral.
Mm-hmm.
And you're an overnight success, but it only took like 10 years to be an overnight success. Like that's a very common story, and there's a lot of people that believe this overnight success thing is for real. And it's like, not really. These people have just been, prepping, and doing for years. They're just moment, or their arrival just happened to occur. And now to those of y'all that have never been paying attention, it looks like they were an overnight success, and they weren't.
Mm-hmm.
5, 10, 15, 20, 25 years of, doing, what they loved. And that's a very important message, I think, that all of us podcast in martial arts, like Eddie Bravo, right? Like before he blew up, he was a good competitor, but people really didn't know until he went, what was it, ADCC, and he went and knocked off, was it Henner, or who did he knock off?
I want to say it was Hoist.
It was one of the Gracies. I don't know. There's a bunch of them, right? But that's when he arrived. But how long had he been training, before that, and now, there was a time where his, no-gi, rubber guard system was huge, in mixed martial arts, and he's cornered a number of UFC fighters. But that was just the moment that blew him up. He had so many trials and tribulations prior to that, it's important to recognize that and not think it was just like one singular moment. It was an amalgamation of thousands or maybe even millions of moments.
Mm-hmm. I was listening to a content creator way back in the day, and he was just talking about, the skill of it. And he was just saying that you essentially just want to lay the groundwork, like as if, I can't remember the exact word he used, but it's like, what do you call the tinder? He's like, you want to lay tinder down. He's like, the work that you do now is the tinder for when it catches fire. He's like, so yeah, it might not be the thing, what you do now might not be is what makes you go viral, but you need to lay the tinder so that when you do get a spark, it can take off. And that's one of the biggest things I've noticed is like posting every day or trying my best to get the content out there. Yeah, a lot of my stuff doesn't do that great, but the ones that do great, a lot of times when I do something really good, then it like helps light everything. It's like all of a sudden they go back through my stuff.
Yep.
Like, oh, this is good. It's like I'll post a meme that I thought was hilarious, and then it gets like 5 likes. I'm like, what? And then, I'll keep posting, and then something else goes viral, and then all of a sudden that one like catches up to where I thought it originally should have been, and it's just like, again, lay the tinder. Not everything you're going to put out there is going to be
and then,
spectacular.
The idea that you don't need, like, it's nice to have the millions, right? But you just like to seriously make something happen. You just need the right one person to see it and say like, oh man, maybe like a head executive at NBC, and they're like, I like what this Scotty guy's doing. I train a little bit myself. He's putting an interesting spin on, Jiu Jitsu commentary. Let me reach out to him and let me see if there's something there. And then an opportunity from, there is born, so it's really nice. And they kind of like, I'm going to actually throw my gym a little bit of love, because something my gym has helped me do in chasing my dreams as an author and chasing a dream at becoming like a successful podcaster that can make a living doing those two things, is I've had a first-hand seat in the front row to watch. And I'm at Gracie Baja, the Woodlands, for anyone that's interested. But I've watched 2 people take their dream from, the very beginning, from like fighting at, I think Alex Morano, his first amateur fight was at LA Boxing over here on by College Park High School. And this is a guy that's, I believe he's got like 14, 15 wins in the UFC, in the major leagues of mixed martial arts, and to see that humble beginning, as a little chubby kid that went into the ring, hit a little head kick knockout, and, just celebrated, from rafter to rafter. It was really cool to just see the growth, the tender right? And he'd step in there, month after month, week after week with people that were, they looked physically like killers. Every fight that I've ever seen him in, he was always, not the biggest dog in the fight. But he just kept making his way, making his way, making his way. And I think a lot of times we think that we can't reach out and touch our dreams because we don't have like someone that's actually doing it in real time in front of us. But to see, our head instructor, Alex Milano, take like the legacy, professional championship and then catch, a break on, I think it was like 2 or 3 weeks notice and fighting Kyle Noak and making the most of that opportunity and getting the victory over Kyle Noak, which allows him to sign a contract and, and winning, several fights and then renewing his contract. I think he's got probably close to like 20 fights, if not over 20 fights in the UFC. I've had an opportunity to watch somebody live out a dream, and that doesn't happen very often. Ricky Tercios at our gym, he just won season 29 of The Ultimate Fighter, right? I saw him from his first amateur fight, and again, just as a bright-eyed and bushy-tailed kid, and slowly just climb the ranks. And there's even like cool moments like where you think he's going to get to his dream. He gets to Dana White's Contender Series, right? Like the first show, he loses. To a game opponent. And we've seen this before, right? You're like, oh man, that was his shot. He's never getting another shot again. But lo and behold, he gets an opportunity, gets the call up to the Ultimate Fighter show, wins the reality series.
Dang.
And I think he's going to have his third fight in the UFC post tournament. But it was nice, to see Dana White present him with that trophy, right? Like we all dream of standing next to Dana White and Dana White giving us something, getting your black belt tied onto you at the Ultimate Fighter, finale. Like how cool is that? So
Dang.
There's something special about having people in your life that they have a dream and you've seen them chase their dream for 5, 10, 15 years and then actually hit the dream. And then furthermore, what do you do with it after you obtain the dream, right? Like it would suck to get into the UFC, but then lose your next 3 or 4 and then never be seen again. But there's more to that. There's more to that. There's more to that. So there's also great value in watching people, obtain their dream. That helps me as an author. Lets me know that it doesn't need to be my first book. I may take an L here. This podcast didn't get as many views as that podcast. I won't even call that taking an L. Just know that there's a process and that good things don't come to those who need immediate gratification. All the good shit.
Dang, that's good.
All the good shit is on the other side of like immediate gratification, right? Like marriage, your black belt, having a career, having a successful podcast. Like all the good shit is on the other end of immediate gratification, man.
100%, dude, man. Wise words. Yeah. So Chris, you got a big day ahead of you, man. You're taking the kids to the university. You got the basketball game and we're running out of time, but I do want to give you a chance to talk about your books. Like, dude, podcasting, coaching kids, doing extracurricular activities, playing basketball, doing jiu-jitsu, black belt. And you also have kids books. Dude, you're blowing my mind about like what's possible and what someone can do. But yeah, man, tell us a little bit about your books real quick.
Yeah. So my books, I got inspired during COVID, right? Like we had an opportunity to sit on our ass or go do what we really want to do because we were presented with time. And writing is something that I've always wanted to do. I'm very ADHD brained. So the way that my books are structured, it's like you can open up any page and you're going to catch a lesson. All of my books are really like, they're about lessons. So I've written books, from a coach's angle, talking to athletes. I've written books from, the son and celebrating my mother and my father. Written books about the kids that don't do well in school, but once they get out of school, turn into wildly successful adults. And I've got a new book and it's martial arts based, right? Martial arts has become a huge part of my life. And I think it's probably like clipped and pruned a lot of my bad and negative habits. And I wanted to say thank you to martial arts, right? Write a love story to martial arts by writing a book. It's called Flow State. And I'm taking like wrestling, jiu-jitsu, kickboxing, karate, just all the martial arts. And each one is going to kind of get like its own separate page with a word that embodies the martial art, right? Maybe like grit, consistency, empathy, just like different words that kind of go across into those martial arts. And also got like little special things on there. I'm trying to show some love to the Houston martial arts community, you know. So I got like our instructors, Matt Wald, who's our striking coach, who's doing mitts for Eddie Alvarez over there at our gym right now. Before the Mike Perry bare knuckle fight. So he's over there, man. No, Alex Morano. So I got them on the page. Jeremy Mahone over there at, you know, War.
Hell,
Right. I'm going to throw, you know, Bob Perez a little bit of love. I was reaching out to my buddy, Jared Chafee over there, Carlson Gracie Conroe, because he used to be with us over there a long time ago.
Awesome.
And so on and so forth. Alejandro Wagner over there at, Pedigo, submission fighting. So every page is going to have like a wink and a nod to somebody in the martial arts community, but more so it's just about like all the lessons that young people can get from training, you know, the martial arts, whether it be wrestling, kickboxing, karate, Jiu Jitsu. So that's my next project. And again, like writing feels good. I write about things that make me happy, just like the podcast, right? Like we interview people that we want to interview. It'd be nice to get Mr. Beast on there or something like that, or, you know, pull Obama, but that's not always the case. So you have to do things that make you happy. And, podcasting and interviewing who I like to interview, which happens to be like fighters and professional wrestlers for the most part, makes me happy. And writing, you know, children's books make me happy. So I appreciate you, you know, give me a little bit of time, you know, to talk about it.
That's very cool, dude. You said Flow State, so it's not out yet, or you're prepping to release
Still
it?
working for it. Like when you're an indie author, right? Like you have to pay for the artwork, you got to pay for the digital upload. Like there's so many things. These projects take anywhere from like 6 months to a year because like we're balling on a budget. I can only afford one picture every 2 weeks for my artist because like I'm working on a budget. I got to pay my bills.
Yeah. Well, so if they're interested in some of your books, where can they find them?
You can find me at coachortiz.com, ORTIZ, and you'll find all of my children's books. You'll find my podcast on there, my social media, and I don't know. I just overall just try to be a pretty good dude.
You're accomplishing that, dude. And I'll ask you one last question. And I'll let you go. Yeah. If there's a younger athlete out there watching this, I try to stay away from saying younger, but you're a youth coach, so we'll add in the age thing there. But what you know what? No age for someone out there looking to accomplish their dreams. Because from my standpoint, you've definitely done that. You're doing what you love for a living, and that's a beautiful thing. So what kind of advice would you have for someone who's looking to live that same lifestyle of like doing what they love for a living?
I would say do what makes you happy and stay consistent. I think consistency is probably like the biggest thing that people are missing. We live in a world with these phones, right? That we want immediate gratification, and that's not the way that the world works. Like you actually have to put your nose to the grindstone and do things for days, months, years, decades in order to get to where you want to be. I think we spoke about it earlier, like all the good shit, it lies on the other side of immediate gratification. If it can make you happy immediately, it may not be what's best for you, right? Like chocolate. Too much chocolate, we're going to get diabetes. Or man, drugs or whatnot, right? It's like immediate gratification. But the things that take time, you know, like marriage or getting our black belt and, you know, a career, 3 things that, you know, like been married almost 23 years, I think. The black belt, I'm going on 15. My career, I've been teaching for about 20. Like that's where like the good stuff lies. So that'd be my greatest piece of advice. Stay consistent.
Awesome, dude. I appreciate you, Chris.
Hey, you know we're going to hit round 2 on my podcast, right?
Yes,
I'm going to switch seats with you.
Absolutely. Man, it's been wonderful. Thank you, guys.
All right, well, hey, thank y'all for having me on the podcast.